Good day, everyone. Our topic for today is the input hypothesis by Krashen. I, Judiel Marie Bisana, together with my group mates, Sir Gloven, please introduce yourself.
I am Glovenly B. Castrodes.
Miss Olova.
Hi everyone, I'm Alojan May of Batao.
So let me go first with it, the definition of input hypothesis. Input hypothesis attempts to answer what is perhaps the most important question in our field and gives an answer that has a potential impact in all areas of language teaching. So I think this question is related to the second language acquisition. So the input hypothesis is Krashen's attempt to explain how the learner acquires a second language, how second language acquisition takes place. The input hypothesis is only concerned with acquisition, not learning. So let me review about the acquisition versus learning. So acquisition is the subconscious, while learning is conscious or deliberate. According to this hypothesis, the learner improves and progresses along the natural order. When he or she receives second language or input, that is one step beyond his or her current linguistic competence. For example, if a learner is at the stage I or the input, then acquisition takes place when he or she is exposed to comprehensible input that belongs to the level I plus 1. So comprehensive input is a language input that can be understood by the listeners despite of them not understanding all the words and structures in it. It is described as one level above the learners of if it can only just be understood. So, since not all the learners can be at the same level of linguistic competence at the same time, Russian suggests that natural communicative input is the key to designing a syllabus, ensuring in this way that each learner receives some I plus 1 input that is appropriate for his or her current stage of linguistic competence. So, by the way, the meaning of I plus 1 is input, then the 1 is the new information that a child acquires. So let me have some example of the input hypothesis. So example, telling stories to kids. Storytelling is one of the most successful comprehensive input activities because an exciting story can arouse the interest of improving the language skills in order to understand the plot better. However, make sure that your stories include at least 80% of words and expressions that students can understand. This is according to the VIP Kid 2017. So, why I plus 1? Why not I plus 2 or I plus 10? It is because learning has its stages and it has a step-by-step process. So, that's all for my part, and let me give the floor to Mr. Gloven.
Statement of the hypothesis. We may state part 1 and 2 of the input hypothesis as follows. Number 1. The input hypothesis relates to acquisition, not learning. And number 2, we acquire by understanding language that contains structure a bit beyond our current level of competence. Input plus 1. This is done with the help of context or extra linguistic information. Number 3. When communication is successful, input is understood, and there is enough I plus 1, it will be provided automatically. Number 4. Production ability emerges, and it is not taught directly. So as for number 1 and number 2, they are clearly explained by Judiel by part of the input hypothesis, which is that it is acquired, which is subconsciously, and learning is conscious. So number, we'll explain further number three, which is when the communication is successfully delivered and there is input and was as understood, then it will be provided automatically. And number four will be production ability is acquired, so it is not taught directly. That's all. Thank you. And next will be the evidence of the hypothesis.
So, I will be talking about evidence supporting the hypothesis. First example is first language acquisition in children. First, it ensures that I plus 1 is covered with no guesswork as to guess what I plus 1 is for each child. On the other hand, deliberate aim at I plus 1 might mean. Second, roughly tuned input will provide I plus 1 more than one child at a time, as long as they understand what is said. Three, roughly tuned input provides built-in review. Evidence from second language acquisition. First, all students may not be at the same stage. The structure of the day may not be I plus 1 for many of the students. Second, with a grammatical syllabus, its structure is presented only once. Third, a grammatical syllabus assumes you know the order of acquisition. No such assumption is necessary when we rely on comprehensible input and rapidly tuned natural communication. And fourth, finally, a grammatical syllabus and the resulting grammatical focus places serious constraints on what can be discussed. Evidence from second language acquisition pa rin. The silence period and L1 influence. The explanation of the silence period in terms of the input hypothesis is straightforward. The child is building up competence in the second language via reasoning by understanding the language around him. In accordance with the input hypothesis, speaking ability emerges on its own after enough competence has been developed by listening and understanding. So what are the advantages of L1 rule use? The use of an L1 rule allows the performer sorry, allows the again sorry advantage of L1 rule use. First, the use of L1 rule allows the performer to outperform his competence to meet a practical need in outdoor communication before he has acquired the relevant I-class rule. Second is the early production allowed by the use of L1 rule also helps to invite input. And the disadvantage of L1 rule use is rule, the L1 rule may not be the same as an L2 rule as noted above and errors can result. Second, even the L1 rule is similar to an actual L2 rule or traditional form, it is not clear that these rules will help the acquired progress. They may not take the place of the true L2 in the development sequence. In applied linguistic research, the deductive method rules first then structures, grammar, translation, and signative code are likely more efficient than the audiolingual teaching for adults. And last, for adolescents, there is no measurable difference. And I think that would be all.
Thank you. So I think that's uh that's all for the input hypothesis, and thank you for listening.